What's up, guys? Gun here. I hope this video is finding you well. I'm recording this on July 17th, 2020, just days away from the 2020 MLB season, which is going to be one of the most unique seasons in the history of baseball. Just 60 games scheduled for the regular season. If you guys are a little bit new to baseball, the regular season is usually 162 games. So we're losing over 100 games worth of a regular season. And from a fan standpoint, even from a small mathematical standpoint in terms of what we do with metrics, this is going to create an opportunity for baseball to be really wonky, right? We always talk about sample sizes in baseball. 60 games, not a large sample size. If you look at the first 20 games of last season, the Seattle Mariners were one of the best teams in baseball. And, of course, they regressed to the mean, and things fizzled out, and they didn't even make the playoffs. They didn't even come close, and they began a fire sale, started selling and trading, and guys like Edwin Encarnacion end up on the Yankees. But what if last year was a 60-game season? Maybe the Mariners are knocking on the door. And there's a lot of examples like that. A lot of 60-game samples of different seasons where teams went super red hot. I mean, a couple years ago, the Indians had a 20-game winning streak, right? So this season has an opportunity to be one of the weirdest seasons because a 6-7 game winning streak or 6-7 game losing streak, which a lot of teams go through over the course of a 162 game season, start being that much more important and detrimental. And it's much harder to make up for time lost when your stars are on the DL, the IL, the injured reserve list. So I think this is going to be a really interesting season in that regard. But it's also going to be a season for DFS that we have to really understand that we're probably never going to have numbers this season that should be trusted due to lack of sample size. So I'm going to be going into this season using the 2-year rolling average from the last 2 seasons. Probably what I would have done anyway to start the season, but at the halfway point of this season, I would have went to just the beginning of last season and then counting this season. But I think this year, this whole season, I'm going to have a 2-year running average. Anyway, I don't want to get too complicated too soon because I'm hoping a lot of you guys watching this video are guys that maybe usually entertain me for my basketball or football takes. We're in a unique opportunity for you guys to try baseball DFS for at least a week until NBA shows up. And I really want more people to enjoy baseball DFS because I really, really, really enjoy it. I think it's a fascinating, beautiful thing once you get to know the advanced metrics. Now, the learning curve to absorbing and digesting, understanding advanced metrics and sabermetrics is pretty big. But once you get it, man, it becomes one of the easier sports to research, in my opinion. About 4 or 5 years ago, I made my name playing NBA and NFL, and that's how I went pro and did this as a full-time job. And then my first season of baseball, I was like, all right, well, I'm pretty good at these other sports. Baseball can't be that hard, right? First season of baseball, I was getting smacked around. Everything I knew about baseball was such a surface-driven mindset. ERAs and K per nines and all these stats that you grew up knowing that they hype up on TV, they end up being pretty much moot from what we do now. And so my first season of MLB DFS, if I'm being completely honest, I thought baseball was the highest variance sport and it was all luck and blah, 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 blah. But after a couple seasons where you start getting those larger sample sizes and you start seeing these advanced metrics go to work, these predictive analytics go to work, it feels a lot better. And versus NBA, where NBA is a sport that you can really use projections and kind of have a range of outcomes every night on what a player could score, floor, median, ceiling, stuff like that. you don't really get that in baseball. Somebody had tweeted me on Twitter the other night, and they asked, "Hey, Gunn, what do you use for baseball projections?" Well, honestly, I don't use projections for baseball because I don't believe projections is really all that. What's the word? It's, I guess possible. I don't know. You just can't project like double home run games and stuff like that, right? And it's so hard to say and follow a floor ceiling route, right? Because the guy's floor in baseball, anybody's floor is 0, and their ceiling is multiple home runs, 4 or 5 RBI, stuff like that. So I just don't use projections, but what I do use is finding matchups and positive matchups that I like, and then creating a player pool based on that. So in this video, I'm going to try and get to the tip of the iceberg and give you guys a couple of stats that I would use if I was a brand new player that I didn't want to be too overwhelmed with advanced metrics. I'm going to give you guys like 6-7 stats to learn, and I'll try and make some more videos, but I want to give you guys something on the surface and give these stats an opportunity to sink your teeth in, to learn, and hopefully you'll start loving the nuances. And like I said, once you understand the metrics and whatnot, and what to look for every day, research becomes much easier. I mentioned basketball in terms of projections, but basketball is also a sport where next man up is huge, right? A lot of our basketball process in a regular season is 30 to 60 minutes before lock. If somebody's getting rested for an illness or an injury, his backup is going to get that much more minutes, that much more opportunity usage. So all of a sudden, a nobody scrub off the bench can be a chalk value play that you have to play, right? Well, that's not the case in baseball, right? If Mike Trout gets the day off, I'm not running to play a backup outfielder because it doesn't work that way. It's not the same. You're still getting 4 to 5 at-bats opportunity, and skill is really a factor. So where in basketball, I can't really set lineups or lock lineups in until just about main slate lock. In baseball, I know what I'm doing pretty early in the day. And the only thing that really is variable through and through is, errant days off. Every now and then you get a late scratch. But it's really just a matter of watching weather, rainstorms and whatnot. So a lot of times it's a much lower stress rate in terms of being prepared for lock than any other sport. And a sport that I once thought was the most variant, unpredictable sport, now 4 or 5 years later is my favorite DFS sport, just because of the process being that much easier. Anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling about that. I'm gonna let you guys know that a lot of the stats that I talk about today are super basic and get you started. But in the RunDFS.com spreadsheet that you guys have been seeing me use on these videos for the last couple of years, I incorporate all those stats and more, and I present them in an easy to read, easy to understand fashion. I use splits. I break down the years for you. Here's a great example. This is from the playoffs last season. Astros at the Tampa Bay Rays. Greinke versus Charlie Morton. Every day you'll see neatly displayed stats, line drive percentage, ground ball, fly ball. We're going to talk about all 3 of those today. And then hitter splits versus the opposing handed pitcher, which in this case is a righty. This is part of a spreadsheet that I've spent years and years developing. As much as I do believe in my NBA and NFL work, I don't think anything that I've done is as powerful and just great as my baseball spreadsheet. And I'm super humble when it comes to what I offer versus what everyone, what other sites offer. But I think the baseball spreadsheet that we put together is like the best, the best tool. So this is the index portal. Every day, premium customers log in. They look at the index portal. If you see it's green, it's confirmed lineups, and they can get to work. Start seeing, all right, I like this guy. I like this guy. This is what the pitching metrics look like. And then it gets deeper. You can go to the hitter rating chart. We have the bomb detector. Anything about 4 or higher, guys that project extremely well for home runs. The pitch report, which actually breaks down the percentage of types of pitches a pitcher will throw and compares it to the hitter's and how they have performed against that pitch. What else we got? The BVP. I'm not a giant BVP guy, but we do track BVP in here that you guys can refer to. Vegas odds, swing tracks, the amount of pitches in the zone, outside the zone, amount of swings induced, and how the hitters swing at those pitches in and out of the zone. It's a whole lot of stuff, and I really am proud of how I've been able to collect that information and present that information so that the most casual of users can use it. And if you guys are watching and you have been VIPers or premium customers, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know what you think, or let others know what you think. But I really do think this spreadsheet has turned some casual MLB DFS players into some borderline experts into what to look for. So I think it's the truth. But if you guys are balling on a budget, that's cool too. And also, if you're just here to learn, that's cool too. Because this video is free 99 knowledge, and we're going to be using fangraphs.com for today's experiment. So here's what I want you guys to do. Go to fangraphs.com. You might see something that says, hey, there's no season. If you have ad blocker on, maybe get a membership. I got a membership. It's totally worth it. These guys do amazing work. It's $3 a month. I'm completely unaffiliated, but just in case you see a giant yellow-green thing up here, that's what that's about. So anyway, I want you guys to make an account at fangraphs.com. Feel free to pause this video, make yourself an account, and resume when you're ready. Once you've made your account, I want you guys to go mouse over leaders, and then let's mouse over pitching 2019. And we are going to do a little bit of a class assignment. We're going to create a custom leaderboard for you guys to use. So once you're at this page, scroll all the way down, and this second column, I want you to highlight everything, literally everything. And we're just going to start deleting it. Hit that X and take everything off of here, right? And it should look something like that. All right, so now I'm going to give you guys a couple of stats to add to a column. Now, this is super basic introductory stats that I would use. Let's say I got off work at 5 o'clock, lock is at 6 o'clock. What are some quick go-to stats if I really wanted some action that I think is doing enough advanced metric research to identify some spots for me to attack in terms of selecting pitchers to roster or picking players against these pitchers? You ready? All right, so stat number 1, we can go Control F, and we're going to type the word Sierra, S-I-E-R-A. Bam, there it is. We're going to hit this over arrow, and we're going to add it to this column. So Sierra quantifies a pitcher's performance by trying to eliminate factors the pitcher cannot control himself. Unlike a stat such as XFIP, which we're going to add, Sierra considers balls in play and adjusts for the type of ball in play. So line drives, ground balls, fly balls, stuff like that. Essentially speaking, if you guys are new to baseball DFS, you guys might know how important historically stats like ERA, earned run average, have been. And Sierra, and in my estimation, is more of a predictive metric that kind of distinguishes and maybe projects a little bit more futuristically for how our pitcher should perform, how our Sierra should look. So ERA is a responsive stat. ERA is what has happened. If I went to a local YMCA, grabbed a basketball and say, yo, let me pull up from half court, and I took 5 shots from half court, and I sunk all 3 shots, right? I would be shooting 100% from half court. If I go home and come back the next week, and we get there and everyone's looking at their stats and, oh, hey, there's that guy that shoots 100% from half court. Well, guess what? Everyone knows that's completely unsustainable to shoot 100% from half court. But in the stat sheet, I would be looking like a monster. ERA has the propensity to be a little bit fluffy on the surface, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, because ERA just tells you what has happened. So if Clayton Kershaw goes out there and has a couple of unlucky bounces, a couple of shallow fly balls that a defender can't get to, and he just has a bad day and he gives up 7, 8 runs and he goes home. He comes back a week later. Well, his ERA is going to be through the roof, and then the casual fan might be like, "Oh, I can't play this guy. His ERA is crazy." Sierra kind of tells you the truth. ERA just tells you what has happened. So I like Sierra quite a bit, and I'll talk about Sierra in XFIP. Speaking of XFIP, let's go ahead and add XFIP to this list as well. So we're going to control F XFIP. It's not XFIP minus or XFIP plus. It's just straight up XFIP. We get that. We'll put that over. XFIP is going to find a pitcher's FIP. This uses projected home run rate instead of actual home runs allowed. The home run rate is determined by that season's league average home run to fly ball rate. So if a pitcher goes to, I don't know, Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, and it's extra windy that day, and a couple of warning track flyouts get pushed over the wall, and all of a sudden that that pitcher has a 40% home run to fly ball rate. It's a little bit fake, right? It's usually a little bit more like between 10 and 13%, I think, is usually the average. So XFIP will kind of cover that up. When I use Sierra and XFIP, I like to think of what I know about ERA, right? ERAs sitting around 3 or less are really, really, really good, right? Same for Sierra. If 3 or less are there, boom, those are things I want. And essentially, XFIP and Sierra kind of give me what a pitcher's ERA should be in the long run, or could be in the long run, right? So that's how I think about that, just to dumb it down. It's a little bit more complex, but just to dumb it down, think of Sierra and XFIP as ERA if you only know ERA for pitching. All right, next, let's talk about K percentage, right? Not K per nine, but K percentage. K percentage, pretty self-explanatory. It's the percentage of times an at-bat ends in a strikeout. It's that simple. 10 at-bats, 7 strikeouts. It's a 70% K percentage. In terms of what I'm looking for from pitchers, I like a 25% or higher K percentage to roster. And then once you get a little bit lower, then we're talking about, third, fourth, fifth day rotation guys. And we're going to supplement K percentage with swinging strike percentage. Not swing percentage. Don't click any of this. Swinging strike percentage. SWSTR percentage. We're going to add that to swinging strike rate. It's pretty simple. This is the amount of time. You might even hear whiff rate or something like that. This is just the ability for a pitcher to throw a baseball to the catcher and the hitter to swing and miss at that ball, right? And the reason I like this, and once we put it all together, I'll explain a little bit more. But the reason I like that is I use this as a validation metric versus the K percentage, right? We'll talk just a little bit more about that in a minute. Now let's go add types of batted balls. So we're going to go get ground ball, line drive, and fly ball percentage. So nothing minus or plus, just ground ball, line drive. Here we go. Percentage though. Ground ball, and we can control it. Ground ball, line drive, fly ball. You can add them one at a time, or you control add them all. And this is pretty self-explanatory. Ground ball, line drive, fly balls. This all has to do with launch angle off the baseball. Bat, ground ball obviously goes in the ground. Line drive is a little bit more of a straight shot back, and a fly ball goes in the air, right? And then lastly, we're going to add hard contact rate. So we're going to go hard percent, and it's going to say hard percentage, but again, no plus, no minus, right? There it is right there. So you might see that there's also soft contact, medium contact, and then there's where the ball's going, where there be pull, opposite, center, stuff like that. As we get you guys more evolved in learning about advanced metrics, you can certainly look at that. But for now, I want you guys to learn this right here. I do feel like if you looked at these stats to start your research every day, it would put you in the right directions. There's going to be more and more and more and more advanced metrics that might steer you towards one way or the other. But I feel like if you started with this group of stats, it would get you in the right direction to jump in the pool, go swimming for that slate. So we're gonna create custom tables. So as long as you have Sierra, XFIP, K percentage, swing and strike percentage, line drive, ground ball, fly ball, hard contact percentage, we can create custom table, and that will take all the stats that we just decided we care about, and it will create a table, and it will show all the pitchers from last season and use these stats. And I'll go through swing and strike rate and strikeout rate so a little bit more. Before we leave this, though, I do want you to come down here to custom reports, and we're going to call it basic fundamental. That's right, we're making the Tim Duncan of baseball report. So you can save it for whatever you want, right? But let's save it, that way we know when we come back to it. So save, come back. I do want to preface this by saying that this is surface stats. Surface stats not the right word. This is stats that they're not splits, is what I'm trying to get at. This is overall. This is a combination of how our pitchers done against righties and lefties combined. As we get a little bit closer to opening day, you'll hear me talk a lot more about splits because I build my lineups a lot more based on splits. Essentially what that means is pitchers versus righties and lefties, and hitters versus righties and lefties, because that's another way for us to get that broken down. So for instance, if we looked at the Cardinals lineup from last season against the Braves, Dallas Keuchel was a lefty, Dexter Fowler's a switch hitter, righty. He was batting under 200 against lefties. Would probably be somebody I didn't love. Would that change at all against righties? It goes from 190 to, I didn't really see a jump there. No, he was just bad. He was just bad. Oh, there it is, 230. He went 230 to righty. So Dexter Fowler is somebody who does better against right-handed pitching than left-handed pitching, and you'll see differences like that for a lot of guys. Generally speaking, righties do better against lefties. You get more time to see the ball coming out of a pitcher's hand, and vice versa. That's not applicable to literally everyone. There's always exceptions to the rule and outliers, but generally that's what you'll hear a lot of people saying is, oh, I don't like the lefty on lefty matchup, or blah 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 blah. Anyway, back to this before we get too far ahead. This is what our chart should look like. We talked about what Sierra and XFIP means. Generally, just think about what you know ERA is, right? A 3 ERA is good. Below 3 is amazing. And 4 to 5 is horrendous. We can further use Sierra and XFIP as a way to stay sharp versus the small amount of the field that still relies on ERA. And I think this season being just 60 games, every 5 days, usually a pitcher will go. Might skip a couple starts. I mean, there might be pitchers that don't get 10 starts this season. So ERA could be really, really, really inflated if people really marry themselves to that stat. But generally speaking, if a pitcher has a high or low ERA, I will immediately compare it to their Sierra or XFIP and XFIP, and I can kind of gauge whether or not that pitcher's been getting lucky or unlucky. What I mean by that is maybe if we pull up pitching stats and just look at general ERA from last season. Who had some high ERAs? Ramon Marquez is a fun example, but that's Coors, and I don't want to get too crazy. Madison Bumgarner. Here's a good example. Madison Bumgarner had a 3.9 ERA last season. That was one of the top 30 ERAs in baseball, one of the from qualified appearances. But even then, you can make an argument that 3.9 was a little bit on the lucky side when we look at some of his other metrics. If I sort this from high hard contact rate to lowest, that'll bring Madison Bumgarner at the top. He led the league in hard contact rate and had a Sierra and XFIP well over 4. So I would think that Madison Bumgarner has propensity to be even worse than he was. And I don't want to get too advanced here, but Madison Bumgarner's home park was AT&T or Oracle Park. which has been the top pitcher spark in baseball for quite some time. So it's easy to say that he got a little bit lucky. And then we saw at the top of the ERA chart, I believe it was Hunyin Ryu had the best ERA in baseball last season. Yep, 2.32 ERA. Jacob deGrom 2.43 and Garrett Cole 2.5. So these were some of your better pitchers last season. You come back to that Sierra number. I sorted from lowest to highest. We'll double click that so it does that. You'll find that Hunyin Ryu had the 14th best Sierra with a 3.32 xFIP. So while he had the number one ERA, and he wasn't a bad pitcher by any stretch, he definitely seems like he was a little bit on the lucky side. And his K percentage being under 23% also kind of makes me think that, you know, his defense was really, really strong behind him. And it was really good players behind him. And his swing and strike rate under 12%. So as an example of a guy that maybe is a good guy but looked great because of factors he couldn't control, like a good defense. So essentially what I'm getting at here is if you compare Sierra and xFIP midway through the season or after a couple games to pitchers' ERA, you'll kind of be able to gauge whether or not they're getting lucky or unlucky. And how we can apply that to our daily fantasy rosters is some guys with high ERAs might be priced lower because of that ERA. And we might be able to say, hey, they're actually not that bad. They've just been unlucky. And the Sierra says that, you know, maybe we're getting a discount here and we can play them, right? So anyway, that's Sierra xFIP. K percentage and swing and strike rate percentage. This is going to be really quick. K percentage, what I'm looking at, over 25% I think is elite. Over 20% is a good starting point. You'll see guys like Garrett Cole had almost a 40% K rate, one of the greatest strikeout percentages in the history of baseball. If you get to the 30% mark, those are going to be your elite guys, your 12K, 13K pitchers. What do I look at to validate that? The swinging strike rate. Swinging strike rate percentage is the whiff rate, the ability to throw a baseball, miss a baseball bat, and get that swing and a miss. So there's strikeouts and then there's strikeouts, right? You get a guy like Bartolo Colon in his later years was messing with a 8% swing and strike rate. But every now and then he had some games with some high strikeouts, and it wasn't because he was missing bats. It was more so because an umpire was seeing things his way, and he was getting some called strikes, right? That's kind of what swinging strike rate tells me, whether a guy is getting, if he has the ability to earn strikeouts when he needs to, versus if he's a contact pitcher. For me, generally, if you have a 10% or less swinging strike rate, or really under 10%, I more so consider you a contact pitcher, a guy that is going to pitch the contact and let his defense do some work. And if you're at 12% or greater, I think you're a pretty decent strikeout pitcher. And I think that's kind of in line here. Sometimes you'll see guys right about in the middle, or guys that have a 24% K percentage, but the swinging strike rate's under 12%. These are guys that I think could paint a little bit. Zach Greinke here, 23% K rate with a 10.5% swinging strike rate. So there's a lot of underlying factors that could be reasons for this. You know, a guy pitched the contact early in the count and then goes for the swing and miss pitch, so on and so forth. But generally speaking, if you're under 10%, I consider you're a contact pitcher, and I usually don't like to play you because DFS is all about strikeouts to accrue fantasy points. But if you have a low swinging strike rate, I do like you to attack you with for hitters, right? So if we go look at that VIP spreadsheet, and we look at like high strikeout guys, so for instance here, Brandon Lau of the Tampa Bay Rays, 27.2% K rate overall with a 41% hard contact rate. If I was to put this against a pitcher with a 10% or less swing and strike rate, something like an 8%, I would be licking my chops, because this tells me this guy has super big power, but he's aggressive. He misses, you know, he strikes out a lot. If he's going against a contact pitcher, in my estimation, that's going to amplify his ability to make contact, and it's going to increase his chances to have a hard hit ball and accrue me some fantasy points. So that's how I would use that. A low swinging strike rate means I could start looking at high strikeout guys to play against the pitcher and vice versa. All right, line drive, ground ball, fly ball. This is real simple. This is just the percentage of batted balls in play and where they go. So at bats that don't end in strikeouts, they'll either be line drives, ground balls, or fly balls. Ground balls are balls that go down into the ground, hit the infield before it does anything else. Line drives are going to be a little bit more straight. And fly balls are going to go into the air. Fly balls generally are the balls we're looking at to be home runs. So I like to cross-reference fly balls with hard contact rate. Now, again, right now we're looking at overall, so this is against both righties and lefties. It's a good starting point. But fly ball and hard contact are actually, as we progress and evolve as students of the advanced metric game, those are two stats that I will want to quantify with splits versus anything else. I do look at this just generally speaking for stacks, just on the surface. All right, we'll start 4 or 5 man stacking guys against this pitcher, but I will want to split fly ball and hard contact rate. Now let me explain what hard contact rate is, because this is one of my favorite stats in baseball, and it's so simple. Hard contact, a hard hit ball, is a ball that StatCast defines as a ball that's hit with an exit velocity of 95 miles an hour or higher. And a player's hard hit rate is simply showing the percentage of batted balls that were hit at 95 miles per hour or more. In 2018, hard hit balls had a batting average of 524 with a slugging percentage of 1.047 and a 653 WOBA. That's really good. The Hall of Fame batting average is 300, right? So a hard hit ball has you a 52.4% chance of being a hit. And then, of course, with that slugging rate, it's a great chance of being an extra base hit or better, right? Home run even. Balls that were hit below 95 miles an hour had a batting average of 219 with a 259 slugging and a 206 WOBA. So massive, massive drop. Almost half of the batting average, and the slugging percentage dropped from 1047 to 259. So hard contact is a massive, massive, massive key to me. And if you guys have been following me, you know that the baseball podcast that I put out daily was called the Hard Contact Podcast, because I love that stat the most. It's so effective. It's so simple. And it's easy to follow the trails. And it's a big, big proponent in my bomb detector. I showed you guys the hitter rating chart. At the far right, I have the bomb rating and the G rating. Well, the bomb rating definitely is a big, big proponent of the hard contact rate, because almost all home runs have a high hard hit rate, right? Unless it's super windy and like Wrigley and something crazy happens. So that's what we're looking for there. If you can combine a really decent, a really high fly ball rate with hard contact rate, we're in business. So overall, if we sort highest hard contact rate, we just mentioned it earlier, Madison Bumgarner led the league in hard contact rate. And a lot of that was suppressed and masked in Oracle Park, but guys like Robbie Ray, Homer Bailey, these guys had high hard contact rate as well. So these are guys that were going to be potentially guys that would allow a lot of home runs, right? So if we go back to this pitching tab, this is the rule, the general one that FanGraphs offers, and we go look for home run per 9, home runs allowed per 9 innings. Some of the guys that allowed the most home runs last season, Robbie Ray had a 1.55 home run per 9. We just said that he was number 2 on the overall hard contact rate. Who else is up here? We had Jacob Junis, the little dirtbag that broke Aaron Judge's wrist a couple seasons ago. Hey, you know what? Whatever. We don't hold grudge. But Jacob Junis had a 1.59 home run per 9, and he had a 42.6% overall hard contact rate. Again, Some of that might be suppressed by Kauffman Stadium. He plays at a more pitcher-friendly park. But if you put that guy in a road, guess what? It becomes that much more juicy in a much smaller ballpark, right? So generally speaking, you can draw pretty staggering correlation between hard contact rate and home run per nine. And we are chasing home runs when attacking hitters for daily fantasy. So fly balls become home runs, hard hit balls become home runs. So you put that together and you start keying in on some opportunities here. So I can ramble all day about more and more stats, but these are the surface stats, the intro to advanced metrics that I really want you guys to soak in on. Hopefully you save this, and maybe we'll drop a few more videos and I give you a few more tabs to create, and you guys can explore a little bit more. If you just have free time, I implore you to learn FanGraphs. I definitely, like I said, we have the premium product, or I have the premium product, the spreadsheet here, the VIP spreadsheet. If you guys want to add this to your daily process, it is a paid perk. If you guys want to join me for the season, you can DM me on Twitter, twitter.com/GundackerSports, and then you don't even have to go to FanGraphs. You just open this up every day and you'll do your research. But I love teaching you guys the art and teaching a man how to fish. So we'll get started with this, and then as we progress a little bit more and more, we'll have more videos discussing sample size and whatnot. Like I said, I'll be using a 2-year rolling sample size, so you might even go here and drop it to 2018 to 2019, submit, and then once the season starts, you can put it to this season, and then you'll have a 2-year rolling sample size of these stats that we're talking about, and you'll see Madison Bumgarner still up there, right? Yeah, anything else we need to cover here on the intro here? Probably not. I when I talk about metrics, man, it's so easy for these videos to bleed into 40, 50 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll tell you guys, if you have any specific questions about lineup construction or how to attack stacks, or just general questions that you have at DFS and MLB DFS, whether you played or not before, drop them in the comments or tweet at me on Twitter, and I'll do my best to kind of keep incorporating these questions into videos and uploading them for you. And then when the season gets here, we're going to have daily MLB video content for you. And then, of course, we'll also have the daily Discord voice chat. That'll also be a premium perk. If you guys want in on that, again, DM me on Twitter. I haven't come up with the weekly rate yet, but it's going to be $80 a month, I believe is what we said. I'm pretty sure it was $80 a month. Or $300 gets you locked in until January 1st. And I think that's probably the best value because it's not just for baseball. It'll cover basketball and football as well. So, but enough shilling here, man. I appreciate you guys stopping by. Hit that thumbs up if you kind of liked this little taste here. And be sure to let me know any questions you guys might have, because it is such a complex sport. And it's so easy for me to just ramble and sound like a monotonous math professor in college, and I know that'll lose your attention. So I want to know, what questions you guys have specifically, and I'll do my best to attack those. But other than that, I'm gonna roll out of here, and I'm excited for baseball. I think in the next video, I'll talk a little bit more about what to look out for hitters. And then maybe how to predict power, a couple stats to put together to project home runs or project pitchers to give up home runs, right? Because we could also use that for sports betting. I love you guys. I can't wait for the season. I hope you guys have been safe, staying away from the Rona. And I will see you guys in the next video. Good luck. God bless. Go win some money.